The laughter hit first, sharp, polished, and cruel. Crystal glasses clinked as chandeliers threw gold light across the ballroom. Leona Hayes stood by the flower arch, holding a tray of folded napkins because someone had to keep busy when they didn't belong. Her stepmother, Veronica, glided toward her in a glittering silver gown that whispered money with every movement. "Do yourself a favor," Veronica said, voice dripping with honey and venom. "Don't stand near the bride. We don't want people thinking you're part of the family photos." Her hand brushed Leona's shoulder, but the shove that followed wasn't gentle. Laughter rippled across the nearby guests. Real laughter, unfiltered, cutting. "She always finds a way to make things awkward," someone whispered. "Bless her heart. She tries." Leona smiled because that's what she'd been taught to do. Smile, stay quiet, disappear. Across the room, her father, Richard Hayes, raised a champagne glass beside his new wife's relatives. He saw Leona stumble, but didn't move. He never did. She turned away, blinking fast to stop the sting in her eyes. Her cousin, the bride, looked perfect in lace and diamonds, glowing beneath the chandeliers. Leona whispered to herself, "Just get through the night." But then something shifted. A faint, rhythmic thump cut through the music. It grew louder. Rotors. A helicopter. The sound sliced into the laughter, like a blade. Heads turned toward the grand glass doors. When they opened, a gust of wind swept through, scattering rose petals across the marble floor. A man in a navy blue suit stepped inside. The crowd fell silent. His presence didn't demand attention. It commanded it naturally. Broad shoulders, calm eyes, every movement deliberate. He scanned the hall, and his gaze landed on Leona. He walked straight toward her, ignoring the stares and murmurs. "Mrs. Hayes," he said, bowing slightly. His voice was low, respectful. "The helicopter is ready for departure." The ballroom froze. Veronica's laughter died in her throat. "Excuse me," she snapped. "You must be mistaken." The man didn't glance at her. "No mistake, ma'am. Mr. Drake sent me personally." Phones lifted. Whispers spread like wildfire. Richard's glass hovered midair. Leona's pulse pounded. Then she straightened, smoothed her dress, and stepped forward. Veronica blocked her path, her painted smile trembling. "What kind of joke is this, Leona?" she hissed. Leona met her eyes, voice steady. "The kind that finally ends yours." The man extended his hand, and Leona took it. Gasps rippled through the guests as they parted like water, making way for her to pass. The night air outside was cool and electric as the helicopter blades turned. Leona didn't look back. Not at Veronica's shocked face or her father's still silence. The wind howled across the landing pad, scattering petals and laughter into the sky. Inside the helicopter, the man in the navy suit adjusted his headset. "Mr. Drake wanted me to ensure you arrived safely," he said. "He's waiting at the downtown office. Said you'd understand what this means." Leona gripped the edge of her seat, still trembling from adrenaline. The city lights spread beneath them, rivers of gold threading through the black. For years, she'd stared at those same lights from a tiny apartment window, wondering if life would ever stop humiliating her. Tonight, the view looked different. Not distant anymore. Attainable. Hers. Her name was Leona Hayes, and for most of her life, she had been invisible. After her father remarried, Veronica made it clear she didn't belong. 2 years ago, she'd been thrown out with nothing but a suitcase and a few bills. "You're grown," Veronica had said sweetly. "It's time you learn independence." Her father didn't object. So Leona found a job at a logistics firm, then another, weekend assistant at an aerospace company owned by Ethan Drake. He was quiet, late 40s, with sharp eyes and no tolerance for mediocrity. Leona delivered reports, kept her head down, and stayed unseen. One night, she'd fallen asleep at her desk after hours. Ethan found her there. "You don't have to prove anything to anyone," he said softly, setting a cup of coffee beside her. "Hard work speaks louder than their cruelty." That moment changed everything. He started mentoring her, teaching her management, negotiation, contracts. "You've got grit," he said once, handing her a file. "That's rarer than talent." Weeks later, he promoted her. When his health declined, he named her successor. Not out of pity, but recognition. The invisible girl had earned his trust, and eventually, his empire. As the helicopter descended, Leona saw the sleek glass tower ahead, the Drake Aeronautics headquarters glowing against the night. She'd passed that building countless times, dreaming of stepping inside. Now, she was arriving as its new owner. The pilot touched down on the rooftop pad. The man in the suit leaned toward her. "They're waiting for you upstairs, ma'am." Cameras flashed from the ground below. News had leaked. The new CEO of Drake Aeronautics was the girl who'd been humiliated at a wedding just an hour earlier. Leona stepped out, the wind tugging at her hair. She felt lighter, like the air itself was different now. This wasn't revenge. It was justice. Justice in navy heels and quiet confidence. The elevator doors opened into a floor wrapped in glass and gold. The Drake Aeronautics logo shimmered behind the reception desk. Employees whispered as she walked by, trying to reconcile the quiet assistant they once ignored with the woman wearing the company's crest on her lapel. The boardroom doors opened. Inside, executives rose to their feet, murmuring her name. Leona Hayes? The assistant? At the end of the table sat Veronica, powdered, perfect, trembling. She'd arrived before Leona, perhaps thinking she could charm or claim control. Beside her sat Richard, clutching a glass of water. "Leona," he said tightly, "this is unexpected." Leona set her bag on the table. "Not really," she said calmly. "Ethan trusted me months ago. Today just makes it official." Veronica scoffed. "You expect us to believe that? You, who could barely keep a job." She laughed harshly. "You must have tricked that poor man somehow." Leona turned, steady. "He wasn't poor. And I didn't trick anyone. I earned his trust. Learned his business. While you were busy buying shoes with my father's money." Gasps circled the room. A silver-haired board member cleared his throat. "Mrs. Hayes, the succession papers are valid. The late Mr. Drake signed them himself. Ms. Hayes owns 71% of the company." Silence. Veronica's face went white. Richard's glass trembled. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. Leona took a slow step forward. "Funny," she said quietly, "how you used to laugh when I brought you coffee. When I worked double shifts after you threw me out. You said I'd never be worth mentioning." Richard finally spoke, voice weak. "You could have told us, Leona. We could have celebrated together." She met his eyes, the same eyes that had once looked away. "You only celebrate people when there's something to gain." Veronica stood abruptly, her hands shaking. "Listen to me, young lady." "No," Leona cut in sharply. "You listen." The air thickened. "I spent years being quiet, being polite, waiting for people like you to see me. But that's not how respect works. It's earned. And I don't need your approval, or your apology." She turned toward the board. "My first order as CEO, a full audit of all vendors and partnerships. If anyone has been using this company for personal gain," her gaze shifted to Veronica, "they'll be gone by sunrise." Veronica's mouth opened, but no words came. Leona smiled faintly. "Security will show you out. You're no longer permitted on company property." "You can't do this," Veronica whispered. "Oh, I can," Leona replied softly. "You did worse, just without the paperwork." 2 guards entered. Richard reached toward his wife helplessly. She didn't look back as they guided her out. When the doors shut, silence settled. A different kind of silence. One filled with power reclaiming its space. The silver-haired executive, Carter, stepped forward and extended his hand. "Welcome back, Ms. Hayes," he said. "I think this company's in capable hands." Leona shook his hand, eyes drifting to the skyline below. The same city that had ignored her now glowed beneath her like a crown. "Thank you," she said softly. It wasn't triumph she felt, it was peace. The kind earned through scars, not applause. That night, as Leona left the building, her phone buzzed with alerts. Breaking news: young woman named successor to Drake Empire, revealed at family wedding. She almost laughed. The world was watching, but for once, she didn't mind. The wind outside was cool, carrying the scent of rain. The helicopter waited again, silent and still. She caught her reflection in the glass door, no longer the girl in a borrowed dress holding napkins. This was Leona Hayes, standing exactly where she was meant to be. Morning light spilled through the glass walls of Leona's penthouse office. The city buzzed below, but she sat still, coffee untouched. Just days ago, she'd been the outcast at her cousin's wedding. Now she was the name on every business headline. Leona Hayes, from assistant to CEO. It should have felt like victory, but inside, there was quiet exhaustion. Some battles leave bruises even after you've won. Her phone vibrated again. Messages, interviews, offers. Everyone suddenly wanted her story. She smiled faintly. "Where were you all when I needed a chance?" she murmured. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Her assistant, Melissa, peeked in. "Mrs. Hayes, someone's here asking to see you. Says it's urgent." Leona looked up, brow raised. "Who?" Melissa hesitated. "Your father." The name hit like a stone dropped in still water. For a heartbeat, Leona didn't move. Then she said, calmly, "Send him in." Melissa nodded and disappeared, leaving the door slightly open. Leona's chest tightened. She wasn't sure what she wanted more, to hear him out or to finally say everything she'd swallowed for years. Richard Hayes entered quietly, looking smaller than she remembered. The same suit from the wedding hung wrinkled on his shoulders. His tie was loose, his face lined with regret. "Leona," he began softly, stepping forward. "I didn't know where else to go." She gestured toward the chair across from her desk. "You've had years to talk. Why now?" He sat slowly, hands trembling. "Veronica's gone," he said finally. "She emptied the accounts and left a note. Said she deserves a better life." His voice cracked. "I should have seen it coming." Leona folded her hands, her expression unreadable. Richard looked at her helplessly. "You were right about her," he said. "About everything." She said nothing. "You have every right to hate me," he went on, voice shaking. "I failed you as a father. I thought keeping peace was the same as keeping family. But I was wrong." He looked down at his hands. "I watched that video, the one of you leaving the wedding in that helicopter. You looked free." Leona took a slow breath. "Freedom costs something, Dad," she said softly. "Mine cost your approval." Richard swallowed hard. "You've built something incredible," he whispered. "Ethan Drake would be proud of you." The mention of her mentor's name softened her composure. She turned toward the window, remembering Ethan's calm voice, his steady belief in her. "He taught me something you never did," she said. "That strength isn't loud. It doesn't need to scream. It comes from knowing your worth when no one else does." Richard nodded, his eyes wet. "I don't deserve forgiveness." Leona's lips curved sadly. "No. But I deserve peace." Silence stretched between them. The hum of the city below filled the space where years of conversation should have been. Leona stood, walking toward the tall glass window. "When you pushed me aside," she said quietly, "I built something out of it. Every insult, every laugh, they became bricks. And now I'm standing in the house you said I could never build." Richard rose too, tears streaking his face. "Leona," he whispered, voice breaking. "I'm sorry." She turned, meeting his eyes. "I know," she said softly. And that was all. He left quietly. No scene, no excuses. Just a man finally realizing what silence costs. When the door closed, Melissa stepped back in with a stack of documents. "Ma'am," she said gently, "reporters are asking if you'll make a statement about your family." Leona shook her head. "No." "Let them guess." Melissa nodded and slipped out, leaving her alone again. Leona walked to her desk, glancing at a framed photo of Ethan Drake, shaking her hand the day of her promotion. Beneath it, his handwritten note, "Never let their noise drown your purpose." Outside her window, the skyline shimmered under the midday sun. In the distance, she could see the same grand ballroom where she'd been humiliated, its golden rooftop glinting faintly. She thought about that girl standing in a borrowed dress, clutching napkins, pretending not to hear laughter. That girl had died the night she stepped into that helicopter. The woman standing here now had replaced her, a woman who no longer asked for belonging, because she had built her own. Her phone buzzed again. This time, just one message, unknown number. "I'm proud of you, LD." Leona froze. LD. Ethan's initials reversed, the way he used to sign his informal notes. For a long moment, she stared, unsure if it was a prank, a glitch, or something else. A small, tearful laugh escaped her lips. Maybe it was a scheduled message from before he passed. Or maybe something greater. She whispered, "Thank you, Ethan." The city lights flickered faintly, like they heard her. That evening, as the sun melted into orange haze, Leona stood on the rooftop helipad again. The air was cool, brushing strands of hair across her face. The same hum of rotor blades echoed in the distance. But tonight, there was no crowd, no humiliation, only calm. The pilot waited beside the sleek aircraft. "Ready when you are, ma'am." She smiled faintly. "Not yet," she said. She looked out over the city, the same skyline that had once felt unreachable. "Just give me a moment." She closed her eyes. In the darkness behind her lids, she saw every version of herself. The girl who was pushed aside, the assistant who stayed late, the woman who finally said no. All of them had built this moment. She whispered, "Never again," then opened her eyes. The city stretched below like veins of light, pulsing with possibility. Leona turned toward the helicopter, her heels echoing softly on the concrete. The wind tugged at her blazer, carrying away the last fragments of doubt. The pilot helped her inside. As the blades began to spin, Leona felt the familiar vibration beneath her feet, a sound that once symbolized escape but now meant something deeper. Growth. Power. Freedom. The helicopter lifted off the pad, rising into the amber sky. The city became smaller, the world wider. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel like she was running away from pain. She was rising above it. Down below, somewhere in that glittering maze of streets, Richard Hayes sat alone in the quiet of his empty house. Veronica's perfume still lingered faintly in the hallways. He looked at the news on his phone. Photos of Leona shaking hands with the board, headlines calling her the woman who rebuilt her destiny. He smiled weakly through his guilt. "She did it," he whispered. "My girl did it." It wasn't redemption for him, but it was something close to grace. High above the city, Leona watched the skylines stretch into twilight. The hum of the blades steadied her heartbeat. This wasn't revenge, it was reclamation. She thought of Ethan's voice one last time. "When the right people finally see your light, don't hide it. Let it blind the ones who try to dim it." Leona smiled. The helicopter tilted east, toward a horizon streaked in gold. The city below glimmered like a promise kept. She whispered to herself, "I've become the woman they'll never forget." And as the clouds swallowed the fading sun, Leona Hayes disappeared into freedom.